Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Aisha Yuki, and welcome to Connections with Aisha. I have the absolute pleasure today to host Asad Rahman from the Dallas area. Asad Rahman attended SMU's Dedman School of Law. Upon graduating, he practiced at small litigation firms focused on medical malpractice and commercial litigation. Thereafter, he served as an independent contractor for multiple international firms where he worked on IP litigation and other products liability class action lawsuits. He also worked as a solo practitioner focused on various business transactions, dispute resolution, and personal injury. Asad also served as an assistant attorney general in Texas office of the attorney general, focused on child support and family law issues. Thereafter, Asad worked as a corporate and compliance attorney for the Boeing Company. He then served as corporate counsel at the Michaels Companies. Currently, he serves as a vice president and assistant general counsel at JP Morgan and Chase. He also serves as general counsel for several Muslim nonprofit organizations, and he was a past president of the DFW Muslim Bar Association. Currently, Asad is president of NAML, which stands for the National Association of Muslim Lawyers, which is one of the premier association for Muslim lawyers and legal professionals in the United States. NAML serves the diverse community by providing networking and mentorship services, organizing educational programs on current legal topics of interest, supporting regional Muslim bar associations, as well as serving the law-related needs of the general public through community service efforts. Welcome to the show, Asad. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Naya, Daur, for having me. It's my pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for all that you guys are doing for the community, and Aisha as well. Mashallah, she's doing a ton for the community, and as a NAML member, we're very proud of all that she does as well. I've had the good fortune of going to school with her. I was a few years ahead of her, and I've just seen her flourish and lead in so many different capacities, and it brings a lot of pride to my heart when I see all the good you're doing, mashallah.
Thank you so much, Asad. That means a lot. I really appreciate it. Well, I do appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. The show is called Connections. And so, you are one of the people that came to mind when I was thinking of who to invite to discuss some issues, especially as it pertains to the legal community and the Pakistani American community. So I guess my first question for you is, as a Pakistani American attorney and a member of a minority community here in the US, what types of challenges have you faced and had to overcome in your legal career?
I mean, great question. I mean, I think for a lot of us lawyers, we're still maybe the first or second in our family. It's still not a common profession amongst our community so far. Doctor, engineer, those are still primary. So finding good mentors was an early challenge, but I was fortunate to have a few who've been very helpful. And now I think we're seeing more mentorship. From the greater community, I would speak to one of the incidents that I was involved with a few years ago. There was a local organization who had bought some land for to build a Muslim cemetery in a rural area here in the DFW area.
Yeah.
And you can imagine the local rural area was not too excited to have a Muslim cemetery come to town. And their city council ultimately rejected their plan and stopped it. And so I was able to, alhamdulillah, successfully lead a team to get the city to reverse their decision. We pressured them. We worked with the Department of Justice and some local attorneys, and the city ultimately reversed their decision and allowed us to go forward. And now that project is in full swing. And so that was a situation where it was clearly discrimination. They had no real basis to stop us. It was just sort of a hatred and a lack of understanding of what our community is, and so I take a lot of pride in that. I was able to do that, purely pro bono. And that's the type of thing that we as Muslim lawyers and Pakistani lawyers, we can do in our local communities. We can serve that role, even on a voluntary basis, because the law and the courts and the systems are sometimes inaccessible, and we don't know how to do that. But we have experts like yourself here to help navigate those turbulent areas.
Yeah, no, alhamdulillah for the success on getting that passed. And I do recall the news around that time and how that was really covered even in the local news, and definitely appreciate your efforts. But yeah, discrimination is, people think, okay, well, it's been several years after 9/11, but there are definitely certain parts of the country where that still happens. So Definitely. Why would you say, kind of moving into just nonprofits and your role in counseling nonprofit organizations, why is it so important for nonprofits to retain legal counsel to support their operations, especially here in the US?
No, great question. So what I tell a lot of these boards that I'm have the good fortune to advise is that they're running small businesses. They're in some large businesses. Mashallah, the amount of money they're able to raise in a single evening, up to $1 million or $2 million. They're just businesses, and so just like any business, you need to have legal counsel advising you on compliance issues, on board disputes, board governance. You're contracting. What sort of risk are you taking on for the organization? Especially, this is all donated funds. And
Right.
I have to remind my board members that I know you're a volunteer, but you do have personal liability with some of the things, what you're managing, both from employment aspects. Again, the fiduciaries that you have towards the community, the fiduciary duties, and then the money you manage on behalf of the community. So I tell them in that sense that that's why it's important to have a legal counsel representing you. And then again, because this is sometimes a lot of our organizations are led by people who don't have a lot of experience dealing with these matters,
Yeah.
having experts, we just like we rely on accountants to help us manage the books. We
Mhm.
need to rely on good attorneys to help you manage your compliance so that you don't lose that nonprofit status. I've seen organizations lose it because they
Mm.
didn't follow, inadvertently they did small things, or they got sued and they didn't have proper protections in place. And then, like I said, they hire and fire employees, and they think, well, we're a mosque and it's volunteers. There's no exposure.
Mhm.
There is. And then I also tell people that that era of, unfortunately, people not suing a nonprofit Muslim organization is over. I think there are people who sometimes have ill intentions, and
Mhm.
so you need to protect yourself and your company and your masjid or your organization or whatever it is, um, for those reasons. And then finally, I'll just again speak to the cemetery issue. That was something I was
Yeah.
doing. Didn't expect to have to become a religious land use law expert. It was
Yeah.
not in my wheelhouse, but
Mhm.
there are times where those types of issues do happen, and having competent counsel, and in my case, incompetent counsel, to get through these types of things.
So you referenced so many issues, and I just kind of want to dig in. So for masjids here, for example, in the U.S. versus masjids that operate in other parts of the world and like countries like Pakistan, there is so much more oversight, right? And this administrative responsibility. So what have been some like really issues that may have stood out, like even in employment law you referenced, like are there just a lot of like heated issues that sometimes happen at masjids and just people just completely put the law to a side and like what have you seen?
I've seen, obviously I can't go into specific details,
Right.
but you know we have this interesting dichotomy. We have an imam who is a religious leader amongst the community. He
Mhm.
has the platform and the pulpit to speak on behalf of the community, but he's also an employee of a board of directors who are volunteers and rotate every 1 to 2 years based on their governance. So sometimes that creates some tension. The community loves the imam, but perhaps the imam and the board or whatever not seeing eye to eye on things. So I've been involved with some disputes along those lines. Intra board disputes happen. I often say, like, I don't think there are very few bad apples that I've come across a few, but a very few. Most
Mhm.
people are very well intentioned when they're serving on these types of boards. They
Right.
just have a vision for what they think is right, and the other person may have a vision for what they think is right,
Mhm.
and so that creates some gridlock. And then I think we're still lacking in some diversity in our organization. I think we still need more of our sisters to be elected. I think there's some still resistance to elect them,
Mhm.
even when we have good qualified candidates. And so
Mhm.
that I think also is still causing some consternation because you're not hearing from a significant part of your community when you're making decisions and building your structures and whatnot. So
Yeah.
I do see that lack of challenge. And then, like I said, there's external challenges that come from not having good relations with your city. That's where your attorneys can be a voice and an articulate voice for you when you're interacting with your city governance, your city council, your mayors, and whatnot.
Got it. Well, I do greatly appreciate that point about making sure that we are bringing in our sisters as well into these masjids. And honestly, a lot of times that balance can even help prevent these types of conflicts because it's great to just have that different perspective. So I definitely see that as a preventative measure. So thanks for raising that. So I want to shift in a little bit to another area that you are really I would say a rock star in is networking and chairing these organizations, especially in the legal community. So the question is, as a lawyer, why is it so important to build a network of professionals in and outside of the legal profession, and what are some ways to do so organically?
Sure. Well, Rockstar, I always say my wife is the social one. I just go. I'm just a chauffeur. I just drive. But I think it's relationships matter in every context, whether it's professionally or personally. Um, legal in the legal profession, it's a source of referrals. Obviously, more importantly, it's a source of knowledge. We are not. None of us are experts on everything. The law, when you say
Right.
the law, is such a broad uh, area of things, wills and trusts and land use and contracts and medical compliance. These are all things that different lawyers handle, and so you need a network of attorneys who you can rely on for expertise, for referrals, and that's one thing NUML's I think is one of its greatest strengths is its diversity of its membership. We've got big law attorneys, we've got academic attorneys, we've got small solo practitioners, we've got those serving in the executive branch, we have those serving in nonprofits, and so if you see some of the dialogue that goes on our listserv, it's amazing.
Yeah.
We're planning a conference for Las Vegas on November 11th, and mashallah, you're going to see the cream of the crop of the Muslim attorneys that are serving in various capacities across the country, speaking there. And so that's one main reason it's important. And then for externally, it's important because number one, it's where you drive your business. And so if you can't earn a living and get business, that's either if you're a corporate attorney. I'm a corporate attorney, but I have to network in order to get opportunities to do
Right.
that. And then even we rely on outside counsel for expertise on things, but driving business. And then again, we all have to support one another. Some of our sponsors are actually not Muslim or it's not law firms, but they're actually nonprofits that I've been involved with. Qalam Foundation is one of the Qalam Institute is one of the sponsors of the NAML conference this
Oh,
year, and so
wow.
that kind of relationship and helping one another is really important. And so, like I said, I think we build a community by meeting both amongst our lawyers and externally.
So how, for someone that is not like, an extrovert or is not really big on networking and is, like how should they approach this? Like especially if they're in like the legal field. Like what are some tips that you would say that they could do to just try to network a little bit better?
Well, marry someone very social. That's helped. No, I just no. My wife Karen is very social, humble, and that makes it easier. But no, I just find your comfort zone. So maybe, but you have an expertise on something. So going to the local mosque and saying, "Hey, can I speak on wills and trusts?" And
Mm,
maybe that's an opportunity to do. You're not having to directly interact with people, but you're
right.
actually getting to speak to a broader group. And so if you're not exactly comfortable doing that, then speaking to a broader group or then, like I said, go to these legal clinics. I think that's another opportunity
Hmm.
where you can get one-on-one interactions where it's you don't have to be publicly speaking, but just speaking one-on-one with people, and they kind of do all the collecting of people for you to
Hmm.
meet. But then again, sometimes you just have to step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
That's always a challenge. And I don't think of myself as an extrovert at all. I think of myself very much as
Really?
an introvert. I took what a profile when
The
I was in my job.
Myers-Briggs, the Myers-Briggs
Yeah.
test. Wait,
It
so you're
said
not an extrovert?
it said I'm a introvert. I'm an extrovert because I have to be, not because I want to
Right.
be.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're like a trained extrovert.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I guess
interesting.
so.
Cool. Well,
Um,
okay, that's interesting. Well, you mentioned legal clinics, and so that kind of leads well into our next question. So, how do organizations like NAML provide an opportunity to build community here, and how are Muslim bars across the United States giving back to their communities?
Right. So NUML is, we're a national organization, so we can't do local efforts, but we rely on our regional bars. We're comprised of regional bar organizations that are doing amazing work. Mubani, DFW, MBA, I'm proud of the work we've done here. We've been involved with legal clinics, both in the mosque and with our greater community. We did one with the NAACP a couple of years ago
Hmm.
as well. And NUML, for example, the conference is a great opportunity to bring so many different attorneys. I've, Alhamdulillah, I've been able to attend the last 4 or 5 different conferences and met people from all different walks of the law. And now I have got, because we all have friends and family in those areas, and I'll get a question, hey, do you know someone who does wills and trusts in California? And I can rely on
Mhm.
my NAML connections to refer to someone not only who's Muslim, because I think there's still a propensity for Muslims and people of our community to go toward people that are, look
Yeah.
similar and understand their backgrounds. And
Right,
I
right.
think that's not an uncommon thing in any minority community. And so they want to feel comfortable going to, a fellow Pakistani attorney
Mhm.
as well. And so that creates that network.
Mhm.
Um, but honestly, the conference and then our listserv, and then like I said, the work that the regional bars are doing. We're doing a scholarship where NUML is. We launched a scholarship where we're highlighting and identifying an outstanding law student and helping them with the costs, in
Oh,
whatever small
wow.
capacity we can. And
Mm.
then Mabani, I believe, is doing something similar. Canva does amazing work both on the Hill, and they do a lot of efforts to try and bring that large. There's a lot of Muslims attorneys, and you can imagine in New York and the DC area, and so
Yeah.
the way they're bringing their community together, I'm always impressed by.
Yeah, well, you mentioned this conference coming up in November. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about the history of this conference, what numbers you're expecting and programming?
Sure, sure. First of all, I haven't seen your registration yet. So we need to
Oh,
get on your registration as soon
I
as
thought I didn't
possible.
need to register.
No, mashallah, Aisha's gonna be one of our speakers as well. She's doing a lot of good work on alternative dispute resolution, which is really important in our community, and so we're gonna highlight that at the conference. And so, no, the conference is in November 11th in Las Vegas, and I know a lot of people are saying a Muslim conference in Vegas, but we got an awesome chair who's also our board secretary, Nadia Ahmed, who's leading the charge there. She embraced it and said, "I want to host it in Vegas," and so we're taking it there. We're going to take the sin out of Sin City as best we can, and but we're expect. My goal is 200. I know it's difficult. The pandemic is still sort of unpredictable. The COVID, we have spikes, so
Yeah.
I hope for 200 or so. We hosted it in Dallas in 2018. It was in Orlando in 2019. This last 5 years, NUML has really kicked back into high gear. It was founded in 1995 by some law students called Muslim JD. Asad Qureshi was one of the founders. She's still
Mhm.
involved. She's still a big sister to many of us, and she still, holds me accountable and make sure I'm doing my job as best I can.
Mhm.
So we're expecting that many. We've got some amazing sponsors. Some of our law firms, Haynes Boone locally is one of our sponsors. Patterson Belknap, who has been one of our diamond sponsors. So we've got some really good sponsors, and then the program is shaping up really nicely.
Mhm.
Again, I can't release the names. We're about to launch that, but we've some very prominent Muslim attorneys from across the nation will be on our program. And we encourage anyone who's interested in, and it's not just for lawyers and law students. Obviously, that's a focus, but we do welcome anyone who's interested in just attending something like this. You'll hear from
Okay.
some of the civil rights experts on different issues, and then cryptocurrency and Islam is one of our topics. So we try to do a
Yeah.
vast diversity in topics. Police brutality cases. We've got some experts who are going to be speaking on that. So I'm really proud that my board,
Mhm.
Edward and Ram, our program chairs, they're doing a fantastic job. And then Sharif is our treasurer. We're doing well. And then, like I said, we have an outstanding board of directors who represent the various Muslim bars across the country, and they give us good advice and keep us grounded and focused.
Awesome. Well, I really look forward to attending. And anyone that's watching this, if you are here in the US and you have an interest, definitely join us in November. So you had mentioned the pandemic. And so I did have a question related to that. How has the pandemic impacted access to justice for the communities at large? So not just the Pakistani or the Muslim community, but just in general, what have you been seeing and hearing? I'll ask that and then I'll do the follow up.
No, great. Another great question. I think Zoom and Google Meet and all these platforms are creating easy access for courts. I had to go to court for one of my nonprofits recently, and one of the
Mhm.
parties was able to appear by Zoom. The judge was allowing
Oh,
it, and so people who would otherwise not even know where to go to the courthouse can simply log in and at least have their day in court. So
yeah.
I think that's revealed a lot. And then as attorneys, we're also being able to educate better. We NUML and the DFW Muslim Bar, from my own experience, have done CLEs. CLEs are legal education courses that we're required to do as attorneys to keep our license. And we've been able to offer that by Zoom. So you have, 60, 70 people. There's no cost to book a room and do all that. You can simply offer these important services to your community who can get educated on various topics. I know the DFW Muslim Bar right at the beginning of the pandemic. We did a program on impacts in different areas of the law of how the pandemic was affecting
Mm-hmm.
commercial tenants, immigration, some different issues that we talked about. And so, like I said, I think it's made it easier to practice law. I know
Yeah,
some of my nonprofit clients, I don't even have to go visit them. We get on a Zoom call and we
right.
talk. So,
Yeah,
when we talk access to justice, I think it's become easier. You can do it from your home, and you can have your day in court, like I said, from
yeah.
a computer.
Yeah, no, I think I remember when I was interning once at a federal court, the just getting there and like figuring out like it was like the Earl Campbell building or Cable building downtown. And I was just like, I was like in law school and I was like, oh my God, where do I park? How do I like, what floor do I go on? What room am I in? So definitely, I mean, I know Zoom has helped multiple industries and multiple practices, but I think the legal practice has definitely benefited with this technological advancement. So along those lines, if there was one thing that you could change about the justice system as we are living it in the US, what would that be?
I think we still and NUML has really embraced this, is that, we still need diversity on our bench. I think, the people making decisions, about people's, whether it's civil court or, criminal law or even family law, you need
Mhm,
diversity to understand the myriad of issues that, these individuals are facing. And
mhm,
so NUML has been proud to, be involved with endorsing several Muslim, candidates who want seats on the federal judiciary and the state levels,
mhm,
and for other positions. And so I think we're still, as a community, needing more diversity on the bench because you want the people making those decisions to reflect the people that are also in those courtrooms.
mhm.
And so that's where I think that we still have a ways to go, but we're also seeing some positive developments. I mean, Zahid Qureshi, who's first Article 3 judge, we have a couple of magistrate judges who are phenomenal. They're personally, I know them very well, and they're giving people, they give back to the Muslim community, the Pakistani community, and then like I said, when you really speak to them, they talk about how they rely on their background from experience. Not that they say they're going to make Islamic or Sharia compliant
Yeah,
decisions, but they
yeah.
rely on that diversity to approach their job and make the decisions that are best.
Yeah, and I think there's so many minority communities that are doing the same, right? Because representation matters, and I think especially living in the current environment, the current political climate, if you will, without getting into the politics of it all, but representation matters so much, and obviously in courts, but as well as in so many other places in the world. So I know the
Yeah. Sorry, like a family law case, right? If
yeah,
for whatever reason there are issues, but there are religious issues that are involved in a divorce, right? That
yeah,
if we had a judge who could at least understand what some of those
sure,
issues are, it might make for a smoother case,
sure.
and a more equitable case for both parties. And so that's an example where we're still more diversity on the bench will
Mhm.
facilitate that.
Absolutely, definitely agree with that. So for our final question for today's show, for those of our viewers that might be law students or even undergrads aspiring to go to law school, what words of wisdom would you like to share with them?
Yeah, I've been blessed to mentor some different law students or just to borrow a word from you as rock stars. I mean, I don't know if they need my mentorship, but I try to share my bits of wisdom. And my dad always tells me like, make new mistakes, don't make the same mistakes we did. There are people who've
Mhm.
walked your path before, so I do try to pass that on. The two things I tell younger people both interested in going to law or who are law students is that one is be flexible, be open minded. You may think that I speak to my own self. I thought I was going to be a litigator. I was going to be in the courtroom all the time, and
Yeah.
it just wasn't for me. I'm now a corporate attorney at a bank,
Mhm.
and so don't pigeonhole yourself. Keep an open mind as to what your career options are and what you'll do. I've seen lots of people who started one way and then veered another way, and so I tell people take every interview that you can because again you might meet someone or find something that interests you that you didn't realize you would have interest in. And relationships matter. The second thing I would say is find your opportunity to serve. Whether you're in big law or you're, working at a corporate attorney, find something that you can help with. Your legal skills can benefit others in some way. Maybe it's just volunteering at a clinic. Maybe
Mhm.
it's serving as a nonprofit board or serving as general counsel for a nonprofit board.
Mhm.
Those experience and that skill set and knowledge you have is invaluable. Not all of us can write $50,000 checks to a nonprofit, but if you can give them $30,000 in legal services, that's a benefit.
Yeah.
And so I tell find your niche, find a way to serve, and find out what your circle of influence is, because that's how we're going to change minds. Is the 3 or 4 people that we meet regularly, then they'll go and have better impact, better impression of Pakistanis and Muslims as well, because they had a great interaction with you. So that's how we start changing our narrative.
That's amazing. I mean, I totally want to echo the circle of influence and the sphere of influence that people have. And again, what you said about keeping an open mind and not worrying about taking on new opportunities and saying yes to interviews. All of these things are so critical, so essential. Thank you so much, Asad, for your time on today's show. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. And wanted to just thank all of our viewers for tuning in, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks. So, assalamu alaikum, and that's the show. Office.
Okay. Thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. Bye bye.